This is MJ. I'm an author, I'm an artist, I'm an analyzer. Find all my work at mjmunoz.com. Henshin Inspection presents Going Ultra. This is a little teaser I have for Ultraman Blazar. Ultraman Blazar is coming out in July 2023. I was curious as to why the Ultraman Z dub, which I have dubbed Ultraman Z, was being released and was coming out at all starting in April 2022, and then I was wondering why it's being released in such rapid succession. 2 episodes a week, I believe it's Saturday and Sunday, every week starting the first or second week of April. That's all of the month of April, so it's a 25 or 26 episode show, right? If I'm remembering correctly, and that would mean 13 weeks. 13 weeks is roughly 3 months, right? So if we go from April, which is the 4th month, we go 1, 2, 3 months forward. That's the 7th month, which is July. So Ultraman Z, as far as I know, is one of the most popular recent shows. It's the most recent show, though. Yes and no. But it's definitely one of the most popular recent shows. I dropped off of Trigger, and I think Decker is done and over, and I didn't watch that one either because Trigger didn't really catch my fancy, and I got busy and was focused on other things in the meantime. However, the dub of Z rather, has brought me back in, and I'm watching it, and I'm very excited, and all of a sudden I see this news about Ultraman Blazar coming out, and I'd seen little rumblings of it here and there just because I'm tangentially involved. I don't keep up on the community as much as I could because, because of good reasons. I'm busy with other things, and that's more my focus, so anyway, but I love these stories, and I'm kind of sharing them with my kids a little bit, and we're watching them and having a good time. So anyway, I'm very excited to watch Z again, and I was actually thinking about how am I going to get my kids to watch this. I guess I'll read the subtitles to them, or I'll wait till they're older or whatever, and then here we have the Z dub. We've watched the first 5 episodes of it, and it's been great so far. But moving on to Blazar. Blazar's coming out in July. It's having a worldwide release day and date. Japan is getting it in their native language, and I'm going to get it in my native language, which is English, over here in America. So I'm really excited about that. We're going to have, like I said, day and date. And I think if the dub of Blazar is as good as the dub of Z is, I think that it'll have a lot of success. I think it will go over very well. I'm enjoying... Well, let's just say there was a new character in the most recent episode of Z that I watched, and I was wondering how they would handle that character, and I think they handled that character very well. It was very nice. They did a good job. And again, since Tsuburaya is such a classy tokusatsu production, I predict that the Blazar dub will be handled very well, and I continue to be impressed by how good of a job they're doing at making the international appeal of Ultraman even stronger. And why do I argue that having a dub makes the appeal even stronger? Well, because you don't have to be able to read. So, not only do you have to read, you don't have to read. Or, not only do you not need to be able to read, you don't need to actively be reading in order to fully comprehend the show. And while these shows are monster bash 'em ups, there's also some depth and some interesting things going on with storytelling. Otherwise, frankly, I think I'd be bored, and I would move on and not spend any more time on them than I, have to watch them, or I wouldn't even be watching in the first place. Like I said, I've chosen to skip Ultraman shows before, and it's something I could do again. But Z is so good, and Blazar looks so interesting that I'm honestly interested in it because it seems like it's taking a unique approach. Part of what threw me off of Trigger was that it's kind of like these Disney live-action remakes that they do of their animated movies. There's something going on where I know Z had a lot of tribute-y type stuff going back to the original Ultraman. It was kind of like a new launch show, kind of like, from the Kamen Rider world, kind of like Black or Kuga or Double or 01. That kind of thing where this is a new start to this franchise. You can watch this if you don't know anything else about it. It's going to be cool. It's going to have some of the classic stuff in it, but it's going to do its own new thing and have its own identity, which I think is good. But I believe Decker was a Dyna remake, and Trigger was a, I don't know what remake, but I don't have that attachment to the older series, and like I said, just something about Trigger I didn't enjoy, so I stopped. And when I knew Decker was going to be it is Dyna, right? My Dyna remake, whatever. When I knew it was going to remake, I thought, oh, okay, so it's kind of a similar thing where this is another remake. I may not be interested, so I'm just going to pass by. But Blazar, as far as I know, isn't a remake of anything, and I find it very compelling just on the aesthetic of the Ultraman himself. A lot of the problems that I have, or one of the key problems I have with Ultraman, and this is partly out of ignorance and I guess newness overall to Ultraman, and partly just my own personal feelings about it, is I do think there's a lot of sameness to the designs of the Ultraman, and I'd like there either to be more variety of color or maybe more distinct head shapes or something to differentiate the Ultraman from each other. The color timer being consistent on all of them, I think is great. That's fine. The red, the silver, that's fine. The sleekness overall, I'm also okay with that. However, I just want a little more variety. I don't know if Zet having all that blue on him is part of what attracted me to him or made him more palatable or not, but regardless, that's an issue I have. It's a stumbling block typically for me, is these designs looking too similar to each other, and I can't really tell the difference between them. By the way, I do think that Gamma Future from Zet looks just like Trigger, or at least one of Trigger's forms, and that kind of blows my mind that these forms have such a weird design sense to them, where they just kind of, again, run into feeling identical to each other, and I hope Blazar avoids that. I'd personally like Blazar to have no forms and just have maybe cool weapons and accessories that he can use. That would be pretty neat. But anyway, moving on to Blazar's aesthetic. He's got an asymmetrical head. The blue, like, eyeliner type look on one side, or it's really on both eyes. It's very cool. It reminds me of the old Japanese art, the wood print with the feudal type, or like samurai characters or whatever, with like the heavy, like kabuki eye makeup type thing, or like if you've looked at anything Persona 5 with Goemon in it. Is it Ishiki Goemon? Anyway, with Goemon in it, like that kind of look it has to it, and then over his left eye, that, blazing out into this, I don't know what you'd call it, that flip of, it's not hair, but you know what I'm saying. That blazing from his left eye looks really cool. I like how the color timer has this, swirl covering it in part, and I like that the red and blue lines on him, they're small, and they're almost like, they're not pinstripes, but they're these much smaller stripes, and there's a lot more of them, and they're all over the place. That red and blue, thin lines scattered all over his body gives him a bit of a chaotic feel. The swirling gives an aggressive edge, and I think that asymmetry just kind of, it takes away some of the smoothness of the design and gives it an edge, honestly. And I don't like things that are dark. In fact, when, like, again, going back to Kamen Rider, people love Gaim in part because it's so dark. I hate it. The darker it got, the more I hated the show, and the less it felt like Kamen Rider to me. But I won't detract from that. So I don't really like dark things. I like these things that are made for kids to be for kids. I like the edge in them. I was surprised in the dub, actually, to hear Haruki say something to the effect of, like, what the hell kind of pilot am I if I can't do this or that or whatever, in the episode where in episode 5, I'll just say that. I don't want to give away spoilers. Anyway, but that surprised me, and I'm not 100% opposed to that. I would prefer it to be a little more toned down, especially because it's a children's show, but, then again, how are most children hearing people talk? But then again, this is a fictional controlled environment, so you can control the way people talk. Anyway, the aggressiveness and the edge of Blazar does excite me and entice me, and I think it looks really good. It looks really pleasing. That monster looked very exciting. I don't know what that thing was, but it looked really cool. It almost made me think of a mecha maybe that somebody had made, which that'd be interesting if there were people making either outright kaiju mimicking mecha, or maybe like a mecha machine hybrid or something. I don't know if that's something that's been done in Ultraman, again, because I'm not an ultra encyclopedia. I'm not ultra aware and ultra well versed in all of Ultraman. Anyway, so what else is there to say about Blazar? Oh, I really like the simplicity of the brace. it's cool that you just throw there's the Blazar brace and there's the Blazar stone, and you just set the stone in there, and it has its own thing where I can imagine what the mechanism is, but it basically, clicks into place and opens and closes over it, which looks cool. Feels a little aggressive again, and then you hit it from the side and then it activates. And yeah, that thing looks really simple and cool. I like the idea of him just having the brace and the stone that he sets in there, and then he can, transform into Blazar. And getting back into, so I talked about the aesthetic of him. The guy who was out of the suit, out of the armor, out of the helmet, and like picked up a phone or something like that, and they said his name was like, I don't know, Himura something, or I didn't catch the whole name. Was there a go? Anyway, it doesn't matter. We'll see it later. Is that the guy who becomes Blazar? Because he looks different he looks a little younger there than the guy in all the tactical gear with the helmet on, who we see with the bracer, who transforms. I like that guy looks older, and I'm surprised, frankly, that he's older, or that he, seems to be older, and I think it's a little bit exciting to have a bit of an older protagonist. Again, the guy in Trigger seemed really young, and, like, I don't know, naive, maybe? His character wasn't so great. Haruki is very he's young, but he's very earnest, and like he understands his limitations and who he is. But he's martial arts expert, and he has core competencies that he utilizes in his work. And they're a very different personality, the two of them, which is good. That's good that they're different. And this guy almost feels a little bit, forgive me putting it this way, but maybe he feels a little bit more like Hebikura, and I think that's interesting. A little more seasoned, a little more experienced, and not necessarily like he'll have his full, complete attitude, but at least the sense that you get from Hebikura in the early episodes of Z, I can see, like, I get similar vibes from this guy. I'll just put it that way, which is a simple way to put it. So that's kind of exciting. I want to see something a little different each time. I'm fine with there being the Science Patrol or the Defense Force or whatever, and it being, similar in that way. Every universe that we're in with these different Ultramen have a similar setup, and then, it's too much for the people to handle alone, so then the Ultraman comes in and makes everything better, saves the day, whatnot. And that's fine. I just want each group of people to feel distinct from each other, and we didn't get to see any of the rest of his support team so far, I think, especially if the guy without the helmet on is the same guy as the one who jumped from the plane with the helmet. And that was cool, him jumping from the plane, there being night fight. Just they picked the best shots. They picked the best shots to make this thing look, I don't know, epic, very serious, very cool, like it's going to be super dynamic. And I'll just wrap up real quick. I thought Blazar's fighting style looked really dynamic. He looks really fierce. Very martial artsy, very composed in the daytime shots, but in one of those nighttime shots where he's leaping and he's cocking back his right fist for a punch, he looks like, I don't know, like absolutely unhinged, like overflowing with power and like ready to demolish whatever this kaiju is he's fighting. And that's really exciting. It's just visually, it looks very compelling, and I was impressed by that. So yeah, I'm excited for Blazar. I'm going to be watching Zet all along, and working on releasing, my reviews of Zet. And then as soon as Blazar comes along, I will happily talk about that, time permitting. So anyway, I would love to hear your commentary or your thoughts on Blazar. If you think it looks good, if you think it looks fierce, if you think he looks edgy or angry or anything like that I described, or if you see something different, I'd love to hear your perspective and for us to have a little bit of a conversation about this, because that's what it's all about, right? Anyway, so that's it for me. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Thank you for your time and attention. This is MJ signing out. I hope you enjoyed that. Go to mjmunoz.com to leave any questions, comments, or other feedback you might have. There you can find all of my analysis, art, and fiction. I cover books, tokusatsu, comic books, anime, and more. Look around. You're sure to find something else that you'll enjoy as well. This has been a Story Over Everything production.